أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. ولعنة الله على أعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ثم أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عبس وتولى أن جاءه الأعمى وما يدريك لعله يزكى أو يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Continuing our discussion on the Quranic vision of a community, we mentioned in our previous sessions that the Holy Quran places great emphasis on the importance of community, which is why in over 200 verses in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't address individual believers, but rather He addresses the community of the believers. And this sense of community is even reflected in our daily prayers, whereby when we recite Surah Al-Fatiha, even when we recite it as individuals, we say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. We spoke also about the importance of fostering a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood in the community. We spoke about how to deal with conflict when it breaks out in the community, and how the Quran has guided us in the area of non-aggressive conflict resolution. We spoke about the importance of creating a community that helps individuals build families through the institution of marriage. We also mentioned that it is a communal responsibility to help people stay married, that if there are divorces taking place, if there are conflicts between husband and wife, our ulama, some of the fuqaha, they say it is wajib kifai. It is a communal obligation to intervene and to help families stay together. We also spoke about how to raise righteous children, because this is the most valuable contribution that we make to the community. That this is part of our succession plan. That today, as parents, we make up the community and we want to raise children who are going to carry the torch, who are going to continue on that road to establishing a righteous society. Another feature of a pious community, the type of community that Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to build, is a community of inclusivity. An inclusive community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He addresses the Prophet in the Quran, what does He say? وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَّةً لِلنَّاسِ بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا. Allah in the Quran, He says, O Muhammad, we have sent you to all people. Meaning that you have not been sent to any specific group. Your message is a message of universality. It's a universal message. And therefore, your masjid is a masjid where all people are welcome. It's not a private club. It's not a place where only the Quraysh gather. It's not a place where only the Arabs are to congregate. Because in 7th century Arabia, the Arabs were known for their prejudice. They had asabiyya. They were very nationalistic. And therefore, they used to look down on non-Arabs. This is why people like Salman al-Farisi was bullied by some of the companions of the Prophet. They considered him to be, even though he was Muslim, they always treated him as an outcast. On one occasion, the companions of the Prophet, they're sitting in groups in the same way that when we sit in the masjid, we sit with our friends and we talk and we chat. So the companions of the Prophet were sitting together and they started to talk about their tribes. What tribe do you belong to? What tribe do you belong to? You know, at that time they used to brag about their tribal affiliations. Today we brag about what type of car I drive, what kind of job I have. So they started to, one by one, this person would say that I'm from this noble tribe. We're known for this and that. We're known for our generosity. Another companion boasts about his tribe. So one by one, they basically start speaking about the achievements of their tribes, the nobilities of their tribes, until they reach Salman al-Farisi, and they knew that he was Persian. They knew he didn't belong to any of these tribes, these Arabian tribes. So to taunt him and to mock Salman al-Farisi, they said to him, "Oh Salman, what tribe do you belong to?" When they put him on the spot like that, at that moment, Rasulullah passed by and he heard. He heard that they were trying to make him feel excluded from the community. So what does the Prophet do? The Prophet, he joins the conversation. He interrupts. He says, "Salmanu minna ahl al-bayt." Salman, you're bragging about the families that you come from. Because of his taqwa, he is from the best family, which is Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The Prophet ﷺ, whenever he felt that members of his community, his companions, were creating a hierarchy, that there's the in-group and there's the out-group, Rasulullah would crush this type of language, this sentiment. The verse that I began with is a surah that many of you are familiar with. عَبَسَ وَتَوَلَّى أَنْ جَاءَهُ الْأَعْمَى. Surah number 80, which is titled, He Frowned. عَبَسَ وَتَوَلَّى. Surah Abasa is the 80th chapter in the Quran, and it's a Meccan surah. And the reason why, when the Quran was revealed, obviously we know that it was revealed gradually over a period of 23 years. And in many instances, there were certain events that were taking place that would trigger the revelation of certain verses and certain chapters. On one occasion, the Prophet ﷺ called a meeting with the leaders of Quraysh, the chiefs of the different tribes. And the Muslims are aware in this period, we're talking about the early history of Islam, where the Muslims are in Mecca, they're persecuted, they are a marginalized group. So the Prophet ﷺ, he thinks to himself that my people are being oppressed, and the ones who are oppressing them are these leaders of Quraysh and their tribes. So the Prophet ﷺ arranges to meet them. And he wants to invite them to Islam. Because if they become Muslim, his ummah will not suffer at their hands. He'll recruit them to minimize the suffering of the Muslims, to build allies. The narrations say that as the Prophet ﷺ was, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, as he was inviting them, encouraging them, giving them some of the basic teachings of Islam, trying to soften their hearts to the message of Allah, As the Prophet was speaking, there was a man who was blind, Abdullah ibn Maktoum. He had a disability. He couldn't see, he was blind. He enters into the gathering, and the Prophet was sitting with some of his senior companions. Among the companions who was with the Prophet, now of course there's a difference of opinion as to who frowned. The majority of Ahlul Sunnah, they say it was the Prophet. We believe that it could not have been the Prophet, because the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about his akhlaq, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَىٰ خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And the same Prophet who, when he used to be stoned by mushrikeen, he would say, Allahumma aghfir li qawmi فَإِنَّهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Oh Allah, forgive my people because they're ignorant. If the Prophet is like that with mushrikeen who are stoning him, how is he going to treat a blind mu'min who is coming to attend his majlis? So we don't believe it was the Prophet. The narrations say that Uthman ibn Affan, he was sitting, and Uthman ibn Affan was from what tribe? He was from Bani Umayyah. He was an Umayyad. And the Umayyads were very rich and powerful. And Uthman was one of the most wealthy companions of the Prophet. So the moment this man, this blind man, comes into the majlis and he wants to speak to the Prophet, he wants access to the Prophet, he frowns at him, he looks at him with disdain, and he turns away. Now you may think that he didn't say anything to him. It was just a look. He looked at him, he frowned, and he turned away. But look at the justice of Allah. That Allah Azza wa Jal, He reveals an entire surah condemning a companion of the Prophet for what? For not giving access, making someone with a disability feel that they cannot have access to Rasulullah. You know, sometimes when we look at Surah Abasa, we become so fixated on the question of who frowned, and then we get into this long debate. But we forget the underlying message of Surah Abasa, which is what? The message of inclusivity. No matter who you are, no matter what your condition is, that you have an equal right to be in the presence of the Prophet. It's not only the rich and the powerful, the Quraysh. It's not only the senior companions. Even a person who is blind, who is considered to be a second-class citizen by others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, he has equal access to the Prophet. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he treated people with special needs, especially those with special needs. He made them feel that they are members of the community, that they're not to be pushed to the margins. If I were to ask you who was the official mu'adhin of the Prophet, most of us, without even thinking, will say it was Bilal. And this is true. He was appointed by the Prophet. But do you know who was also appointed by the Prophet as a mu'adhin? Because the Prophet gave the responsibility to two main people. One of them, the other one, was Abdullah ibn Maktoum, the man who was blind. So you see that an important position, like being the mu'adhin, the one who calls the Muslims for prayer, it's an important job. It's a very distinguished role. The Prophet gives this high position to who? He gives it to Bilal, the Abyssinian or the Ethiopian slave, and he gives it to someone with special needs in the community. And therefore you find the Prophet ﷺ, he always made sure that people in the community felt like they were part of the ummah, that they were included in the affairs of the ummah. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ and the Ahlul Bayt, لا بصلوا على محمد وآل محمد, even when it came to the language that they used with people who had special needs. You know, when you speak to counselors and psychologists, you know, the problem, and I have friends who are people who have special needs. You know what they always complain about? Someone who has a disability. They say, Shaykh, the problem is when you're a person with special needs, with a disability, people see the disability before they see you as a person. Meaning your disability becomes your primary identity. And therefore we even have to, as Muslims who care about being inclusive, we have to even change the language that we use. I'll give you a very simple example. Some of us may not think that there's any issue with referring to someone as a blind man, that this is a blind person. If someone walks in to the masjid and they have a disability, many of us would refer to that person. Did you see the blind brother who walked in? Meaning, we place emphasis on what? On the disability, because it's the first thing that we mention. A blind man. But if we want to be people of inclusivity, we have to move towards first person constructions when we speak. So instead of saying that a blind man entered the masjid, you say what? A person who is blind entered the masjid. Now you may say, what's the difference? The difference is, you said a person who is blind. You made their humanity their primary identity. You didn't make the disability the focus. You made the focus what? Their humanity. And this is, we as followers of Ahlul Bayt, we have to be that sensitive when it comes to these issues. Because that's the difference between people of refined akhlaq and people who are ordinary. You find that even some of the most noble companions of the Ahlul Bayt were individuals who had certain disabilities, who were special needs, but they were some of the elite companions of the Ahlul Bayt. There was a man by the name of Abu Basir. Abu Basir was one of the best students of Imam al-Baqir and Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullahi alayhima. He had a disability. He was blind. Abu Basir was blind. You notice that in the ahadith, Imam al-Sadiq has many conversations with Abu Basir. But not one time does Imam al-Sadiq refer to him as the blind man. The Imam never calls him the blind man. On the contrary, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, what does he call him? Abu Basir. You know what Basir means? The one who has vision. The one who can see. Meaning Imam al-Sadiq didn't treat him as, oh, this is someone that needs, he treated him with respect. There's a hadith from the Prophet, sometimes as a community, as a society, we pay more attention to physical disabilities than spiritual disabilities. Some of us, we might be physically healthy, but we're spiritually handicapped. And someone may be handicapped, but they're spiritually healthy. That's why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet, he says, this is a very important lesson. Because people who have special needs, the last thing that they want is to be treated differently. They want to be treated like they're everyone else in the community. The Prophet says, لَيْسَ الْأَعْمَى مَنْ يَعْمَى بَصَرُهُ. The Prophet, he says, the one who is blind is not the one who cannot see. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَى مَنْ تَعْمَى بَصِيرَتُهُ. The Prophet says, the one who is truly blind is not the one who does not have eyesight. The one who is truly blind is the one who lacks insight. Abu Basir, he lost his eyesight. But Abu Basir had a type of vision that many of the people in the Ummah, they lacked, which is the vision of the heart. The vision of the heart. Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, they made everyone feel welcome. And this is why there was a man who came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Allahumma salli ala. And he used to live quite a distance, not too close to the masjid, but also not too far. He lived in the neighborhood, meaning he lived walking distance from the masjid. But he had a disability. He was blind. And he comes to the Prophet and he says to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, inni darirul basar. Ya Rasulullah, I'm blind. وَرُبَّمَا أَسْمَعُ النِّدَاءَ وَلَا أَجِدُ مَنْ يَقُودَنِي إِلَى الْجَمَاعَةِ وَالصَّلَاةِ مَعَكَ. Ya Rasulullah, I'm blind. And sometimes I hear the adhan. I hear the call for prayer. But I'm home by myself and I don't have anyone to take me to the masjid so I can pray jama'ah with you. Now what does the Prophet say? Look at the hikmah of the Prophet. The Prophet doesn't say that it's okay. You have a disability, you stay at home. You pray at home and inshallah you get the same thawab. The Prophet doesn't say this. What does the Prophet do? He gets, because he lived several meters away from the house, maybe a 5-minute walk, whatever it may have been, the Prophet, he gets rope. And he says, شِدْ مِن مَنْزِلِكَ إِلَى الْمَسْجِدِ حَبْلٌ وَحْضَرَ الْجَمَاعَةِ. The Prophet says, he gets a piece of rope and he ties one end of the rope to the masjid. And then he walks with this man all the way to his house, and he ties another piece of rope, the other end of it, to his house. And he tells him that when you hear the adhan, follow the rope and attend Salatul Jama'ah with us. Look at how the Prophet accommodated. Now you may ask me, now here's a very important point. You may ask, why didn't the Prophet appoint someone to hold his hand and walk him to the masjid? There could be two answers to this question. Number one, the Prophet ﷺ wants people with special needs. لا بصلوا على محمد وآل محمد. He wants people with special needs to feel a sense of independence. You know, that's the problem. Sometimes we make them feel like they're a burden. So he says, I'll teach you how to get to the masjid on your own. So no one will make you feel like a burden. And the second reason, which I already alluded to, is that if the Prophet were to appoint someone, maybe they'll be happy to do it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but perhaps there may come a day when a person who was commissioned with that responsibility will make this man who had blindness feel like he's a burden. Look at how much care, how much attention the Prophet gives to every member of his community. He doesn't want even this person to feel that he's a burden. But attend the prayer, attend the jama'ah. There's another beautiful narration about how the Prophet dealt with a woman, a Muslim woman, who had a mental illness. You know, sometimes we think these are issues that only affect our time. There were people who also had mental illnesses during the time of the Prophet. So the hadith, the narration says, أَنَّ امْرَأَةً كَانَ فِي عَقْلِهَا شَيْءٍ. So there was no word for mental illness. It just says that there was something wrong with her mind. She had some type of mental issue. فَقَالَتْ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ إِنِّي إِنَّ لِي إِلَيْكَ حَاجَةً. So this woman who had a mental illness, she came to the Prophet and she says, Ya Rasulullah, I need your help. I need you to help me with something. Now, you and I, most of the time, if someone approaches us with a mental illness, what do? Either we escape, we run away, or we tell someone else to take care of the problem. Especially if we're community leaders and we think that we're important people, we hand off the responsibility to someone else. What does the Prophet do? He says to her, فَقَالَ يَا أُمَّ فُلَانٍ. Number one, the Prophet addresses her with the utmost respect. In many cultures, it's disrespectful to call someone by their name, especially if they're elderly, if they're an older person. Out of respect, you say, Fulan, O mother of Fulan, or O father of Fulan. He addresses her as Ya Fulan. Even though she might not comprehend what he's saying, he speaks to her with the utmost respect. انظري أي السكك شئت حتى أقضي لك حاجتك. The Prophet first addresses her with respect, with dignity. And then he says, you tell me where you feel comfortable to discuss your problem. Imagine. The Prophet says, you choose a place that makes you feel safe and comfortable. Right now we're in the middle of the road, and I don't want you to feel compelled to stand here and talk to me. I'm willing to go wherever you want to go and have a conversation. فَخَلَى مَعَهَا فِي بَعْضِ الطُّرُقِ. The narration says, she had a mental illness, so she started to zigzag in the streets. She would go in this alley, out of this path. She was walking and zigzagging through the alleyways, and the Prophet was walking with her. He was walking with her so patiently until they reached to a place حتى فرغت من حاجتها, and the Prophet sat and he listened to her problems, to her concerns, until she felt satisfied, and the Prophet left. The Prophet ﷺ, he's the messenger of God. He's a very busy man. He has an entire ummah, but look at how he gives of his time to people. This woman, was she going to give money to Rasulullah? No. Practically speaking, she really had nothing to offer the Prophet in the sense of, building the ummah. But look at how much attention and how much time the Prophet gives to people who have nothing that they can offer him. This is the true sign of sincerity, of taqwa. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. There was another individual during the time of the Prophet. He was a companion of the Prophet. And he's a companion that many of us probably have never heard of. We're familiar with some of the famous companions. The Prophet, according to some reports, he had over 100,000 companions. Historians have only mentioned by name maybe 8,000 of them. And among the 8,000 of them, me and you probably know by name maybe 5 or 10 or 15. And if you're a master at the science of hadith, maybe you know a couple hundred. But the majority of them, we don't know who they are. There was one companion by the name of Julaybib. He was a man who was born with a deformity. And, in 7th century Arabia, they used to bury healthy female infants alive, let alone someone who's born with a birth defect. So this man, he was born and he was abandoned as a child. He didn't know who his mother was or his father. So he grew up in Arabia on his own. He was an outcast. And can you imagine how difficult it is to grow up in a society where everything is about your tribe? Everything is about who your mother is and who your father is. He grows up in this type of society. So it's difficult, and you're already at a disadvantage just from the fact that you don't know who your parents are, that you were abandoned. In addition to that, you have this facial deformity. The narration, the historians say that he was short, he was not attractive, and some even say that he was poor. He was poor, short, unattractive. In fact, he used to be bullied by many of the people in Medina. Some of the companions of the Prophet used to also bully him. And therefore, he used to spend a lot of his time, in the company of the women, because they were the only ones who showed him some compassion. Because women generally, they have more compassion than men. They're not as aggressive. So he would be bullied. And he never even bothered. He never even bothered to try to get married, right? He thought to himself that it's difficult for people without any, deformities or any health conditions to get married, let alone me. So marriage was not even in his mind. Until the Prophet ﷺ one day came to him. And he said to him, Ya Julaybib, I want to help you get married. So Julaybib says, Ya Rasulullah, I don't think anyone would want to be married to me. So the Prophet says, I'll do my best to help you. So the Prophet, he goes to the house of one of the nobles of Medina. He doesn't go to any family. Julaybib, because he has taqwa, he's a good person, he's pious. He goes to the house of a noble family, a very well-known, prominent family. Rasulullah knocks the door, and they open the door, they see it's Rasulullah at their doorstep. The Prophet, he greets them, and he says, Inni uridu an atazawwaj ibnatak. I want to marry your daughter. Before the Prophet could finish his sentence, the father was excited. Ahlan wa sahlan, right? Please, it is our honor. The Prophet says, no, not for myself. I'm here to ask for your daughter's hand on behalf of someone else. They said, he's asked the Prophet, who is it? He says, Julaybib. So this man, he was very diplomatic. He didn't want to say no to the Prophet. So he says, I have to talk to my wife about this. So he says, let me speak to my wife. He was too embarrassed to decline the Prophet. So he says to his wife that Rasulullah wants to marry our daughter before he can even finish the sentence. She says, this would be our honor for Rasulullah to marry our daughter. He says, no, please, I have some bad news. The Prophet came to ask for our daughter's hand on behalf of Julaybib. You know the guy who has that condition? The narration says she started to scream. She said, never, my daughter, our pride and joy, we give it to this guy? He's a nobody. Sometimes they use even harsh language. When Allah Azza wa Jal wants to bring two hearts together, it's going to happen. The daughter was hearing all of this commotion. And she says to her parents, shame on you. You're going to reject the proposal of Rasulullah? Rasulullah would never ask me to marry someone unless they were pious, unless it was in my best interest. So she pressures her parents and she gets married to Julaybib, this man. Julaybib, he joins the Prophet on one of the military expeditions. And during the battle, many of the Muslims, there were many casualties in that battle. And each of the Sahaba, they were looking to make sure, to check and see the identity of the deceased. So the Prophet would say that, have you guys lost any members of your family, any members of your tribe? So they would go and they would see. And then the Prophet asked, because Julaybib was fighting in this battle. He says, I don't see Julaybib. What happened to him? Because people were only asking about their own families and their own tribes. He was tribeless. He had nobody. So the Prophet, he walks on the battlefield. And then he sees the body of a small man. And he sees that it is the body of Julaybib. He was martyred. Everyone was weeping over their shuhada. But there was no one mourning this man who had no family, who had nobody. Rasulullah, he put his hands under his body and he started to cry. He says, Innahu minni wa aname. That he's one of mine. He's one of mine. These are the types of leaders that we had, brothers and sisters. They made even the most wretched people in the eyes of society feel like they're a part of the family. When Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi alayhi, Allahumma salli ala. When Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen was martyred, Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein, they took care of the funeral arrangements. They buried their father. And with heavy hearts, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, they were walking back. Can you imagine how difficult it is to put Ali ibn Abi Talib in the earth and you put the soil on top of him, and then you have to walk back home, that you have to go on with life after Ali ibn Abi Talib has left this world? So as they're walking through the alleyways of Kufa, they hear a man who's sitting on the ground, crying, wailing. They go to him, they say, "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" And they notice that he was blind. And he had some physical disabilities. He was handicapped. He was crying. They say, "Oh man, what is wrong? Why are you crying?" He says that I feel so lonely. They said to him, "Why do you feel lonely? Where's your family?" He says, "I don't have any family. But for a long time, there was a man who used to come and he used to sit with me and he used to put the food in my mouth when I was hungry because I couldn't see. And he would talk to me. And it's been 3 days that this man has not come to me. That maybe he was upset with me. I want to know what happened to him." Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein began to cry. They said that this man was our father, Ali ibn Abi Talib. And we offer our condolences to you because we just buried him. The narrations say that this man, he became so grief-stricken that he died of sorrow. He died when he heard that Ali ibn Abi Talib perished. This is the type of love that Ahlul Bayt had for humanity. And on a night like this, we remember the wife of Rasulullah. This woman who the Prophet ﷺ loved so dearly. There was no one who was more beloved to the Prophet than Khadijah. In fact, many years after the death of Khadijah, Rasulullah never forgot her. You know, when someone is very dear to you, some of us, we love people who have passed away. We remember them maybe on the joyous occasions. We remember them every once in a while. But Rasulullah, every day, he would remember Khadijah. Aisha, she says, كان لا يخرج من البيت كان رسول الله لا يكاد يخرج من البيت حتى يذكر خديجة ويحسن الثناء عليها. Even Aisha, she says, that I swear that never, not even once, he would leave the house unless he would remember, he would recall a memory that he had with Khadijah. And she says, until one day, I became jealous. And I told the Prophet that, Ya Rasulullah, how much are you going to talk about this woman? هل كانت إلا عجوزة? That she was an old woman. وَقَدْ أَبْدَلَكَ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا. That Allah gave you better wives, younger wives. The narration says the Prophet became so angry. His face became red. And he says, لا والله ما أبدلني الله خيرا منها. I swear by Allah that He has not given me anyone better than Khadijah. آمنت بي إذ كفر الناس. She believed me when everyone else rejected me. When everyone was calling me a magician and a liar, she was calling me Ya Rasulullah. صدقتني إذ كذبني الناس. She submitted to me, she followed me when everyone else turned away. وواستني بمالها إذ حرمني الناس. She gave me all of her wealth when everyone else deprived me. وَرَزَقَنِيَ اللَّهُ مِنْهَا أَوْلَادًا دُونَ غَيْرِهَا مِنَ النِّسَاءِ. And through her, not through any other woman, Allah gave me a progeny. He gave me children through her. And this is why in the Shi'b of Abu Talib, when the Muslims were placed under sanctions and they were boycotted, it was the wealth of Khadijah, because no one would buy and sell to the Muslims. It was the wealth of Khadijah that allowed them to survive. Until in those years, Khadija became ill. And Khadija, she felt that she would not recover from her illness. And when she was on her deathbed, she calls upon her daughter Fatemah, who was 5 or 6 years old, 6 or 7 years old at the time. She comes to her mother and she says, Bunayya Fatemah, O Fatemah, I want you to ask your father for a favor. I'm too embarrassed to ask him. She says, yes, oh my mother, what do you want? She says, ask your father. I don't want to put pressure on him. He's under a lot of pressure, but I have one request. That when I die, he puts the abaya that he wears when he's in salah and he uses it to wrap me with. I want my kafan to be the abaya of Rasulullah. So Fatemah Zahra, she goes and she makes this request to her father. And then Khadija, she calls upon Ayman, her friend. Ayman comes to Khadija and she says, Khadija says to her that, oh Ayman, my heart is filled with grief. Ayman says, why ya Khadija? Why are you sad? She says, because I'm not going to see Fatemah grow up. I'm not going to see the day that she gets married. And every bride wants her mother to be with her on the wedding day. So I ask you, O Ayman, that if you live long enough to see the day that Fatemah gets married, I want you to kiss her on my behalf. And on the day that Fatemah alayhi salam was wed to Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ayman, she goes to Fatemah alayhi salam and she kisses her cheeks and she says, today, these kisses are from your mother, Khadija salamullahi alayha. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless us and guide us and illuminate our hearts with the teachings of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We ask Allah to grant us the ziyarah of the Sayyidah Khadija in this life. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to honor us with the shafa'ah, with the intercession of a Sayyidah Khadija on the day of judgment. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ